catchment, which there's been consent granted from the Regional Council for. There's been a lot of planning done around greenfield areas and ensuring that there's stormwater facilities for detention, treatment and drainage of stormwater from those greenfield areas. So in respect to greenfield areas, stormwater, in my view, is being well managed. It's really the existing urban areas where there's a need to retrofit some of that with stormwater management. And so as part of some of those greenfield areas, there's what's called retrofitting, where, for instance, in Wigram, there's runoff from existing urban areas, which goes into the same basins that the greenfield subdivision drains into, because those facilities have been designed not just for the new subdivision, but some of the existing. So I understand there's further work to be done on the Avon catchment, which this site fits in, but it's similar principles.
There was a very clear request too from Council the other week that in fact the downstream effects from any developments, that they be checked out. Okay. Thank you.
Can I just clarify, is there any reason why we don't defer the mail to the second phase of the DPR, like the Area 3? I'm not 100% convinced everyone's actually agreed or understands what we've agreed to.
I guess my question would be, by deferring it, there's obviously additional time, but we're in a comfortable position from a technical perspective. It's what more could be understood
done in that time.
But
We do have, for example, with Area 3, we have specific work that we're doing.
Right.
No, it's no negotiating leverage unless you want to see potentially what the discussions are between the Mayor and the Minister. However, my understanding was that that was on Area 3. I didn't understand that that's on Mail site.
Done. We've ensured that the fast food places are actually not on Memorial Ave, but in sort of faced
Internal to the
site. And there is obviously some concern about the amount of car parking just because of the pressure on car parking in that area. Yeah. And because we can't see the magic formula, we're kind of slightly sort of concerned about that. So we're going ahead with the Mail site with that, those restrictions, and the Area 3 is in the next round.
That's correct.
And obviously the Council's preferred view is, with Council Law's preferred view, is that not be industrial. And at the moment, since it's in the LERP, those negotiations need to be with the Minister.
That's correct, because it is currently zoned for greenfield business in the regional policy statement.
Just to say that, I mean, the reason I think it should be done as part of Area 3 is because you do look at the cumulative traffic and parking effects, and possibly the stormwater. So if this is going ahead today, I'd also want possibly, and I don't know how we do this, a different outline development plan limiting access onto Memorial Ave. So, but I don't know, like, at what stage does that get considered?
So the Council's desired outcome is that the Area 3 does not become a greenfields business zone at all. We don't want that to be industrial. So that's probably going to be greenfields and cemetery or something if we get our way. So the combined traffic effects won't be that great if it's cemetery.
But you've agreed to not put Area 3 into this round of notifications anyway. There will be further discussion around the ITA rule and what it can and can't do, and its benefits in relation to or in comparison to a set number of car parks required will be discussed when we go through the provisions of the transport chapter, the revisions. So,
And there was the outline development plan. Is now the time to change it if we're uncomfortable?
for which site?
The Mail site.
now is the time, but I don't know that we could just make a decision outright, because as I've described, we're using different ways for managing traffic effects, and the ITEA is a central part of understanding that.
But what's the point in having an outline? I just don't want to get another noble subdivision where you get an outline development plan, then you do a traffic assessment, and whoa, wait a minute, the outline development plan has got about 5,000, safety issues, and the development's already started, and suddenly the community say, hang on a minute, there's no cycleway, or there's no, I'd love to see cycleways going through here. That was, again, some of the community feedback. But the outline development plan we have seems to indicate, yep, put 2 access ways into Memorial Ave, no clear pedestrian or cycleways, and possibly sufficient stormwater, maybe not, depending on what we decide. So is that something you guys can,
If perhaps Mark could explain to you how we got to this outline development plan, and then if you can articulate for us what concerns you still have after that.
For any greenfield area, there's the traffic assessment itself informs the outline development plan and guides what the road network looks like on the outline development plan and where the access points are. So, for instance, a traffic assessment can consider the impacts of traffic signals at 2 points on Memorial Ave and look at the appropriateness of that. And the traffic assessment has concluded that one set of signals is more appropriate. Now, if we were to explore other options, such as there being no access to Avonhead Road, then potentially we'd need to do further work to establish what the impacts of all the traffic going onto Memorial Ave would be. I'd need to review what's previously been done in that respect, but it's...
If we're looking at the central city being very pedestrian friendly, bike friendly, public transport friendly, how have we kind of transposed those concepts for a citywide transport plan onto new developments? So are these guys required to put in, because the easiest time is now, clearly, are they required to put in cycleways and things?
The outline development plan identifies a cycle route adjoining the site to...
So is that now standard practice, that they have to create sort of off-road cycleways through the...
A number of outline development plans do identify cycleways through sites, and when assessing the appropriateness of a cycleway going through a site, it's considering where do the cycle routes around that site go, or where are they planned to go. David can add to this on...
Yeah, so in terms of the roads and whether the cycle lanes or not, on there we have got that in the draft subdivision chapter, which I understand is coming to you next Wednesday, I think it is. So there is a table in the subdivision chapter which outlines on which features should be on which road, and it says on all key roads there should be cycle lanes, should be footpaths, so it should not just be for traffic, but you can consider the detail of that on Wednesday. So
just to be clear, if we're looking at putting cycleways off-road, and so that, the cycling population goes from 3% to 15%, how have we implemented that in our new district plan into new greenfield residential and commercial and industrial subdivisions?
Yeah, so we require outline development plans to show the cycle routes, which they have here with the off-road route along Memorial Avenue, and we require all roads that are collector or arterial roads to have on-road cycle lanes as well.
So why aren't we also going to be requiring smaller local roads to have them too?
Well, that's because there's about 2,000 kilometres of local roads. If we required all greenfield areas to do it, then we would have to do it on all our network as well, which is a significant cost. Well, otherwise it would create potentially a double standard where we're requiring developers to do something that we don't do on our current network. But for most local roads, there's so few traffic on those local roads that cyclists, the maximum of traffic is normally not a problem. It's the safety issues are occurring on our arterial and our collector roads.
Well,
that's why.
I beg to differ, and with due respect, that's not what the cyclists would generally say. They want safety everywhere they cycle.
Sure, and that's why we're building the major cycleway network to cater for that as well.
Sure.
One thing we can consider is showing on the ODP a cycle route running along one of those north-south routes between Memorial and Avonhead. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yep.
Fair to say that, I mean, if you want to sit through the entire district plan review workshops, that you actually want some outcomes, and to be fair to the people around the table, there's a reasonably sort of cycle-conscious group of councillors here, so they're quite green, even though some of them try to disguise it. And I think one of the outcomes that we would like to see is actually a higher standard than what's been created in the past. That yes, the double standard is fine. I mean, if it is much easier to construct off-road cycleways in a new development than it is to go back and retrospectively fit them, and so they're cheap. They're not a major. I mean, this has increased the value of this land dramatically. So the very least they can do is put some decent cycleways in there.
So we're really just supporting what I guess started off with share an idea,
Yep.
but those concepts, but also the strategic transport plan of choices for people, including active travel. I'm sure there's clear support from our councillors on that.
Madam Chair, through you, as Mark has indicated, there can be some changes made to this ODP that reflect the concerns that are being raised right now. That there doesn't have to be detailed knowledge of exactly who's going to be operating on the site to be able to make some changes to the ODP that are indicative of what needs to be contained in the development plan when it comes in. So for a cycle lane, you can indicate on an ODP that there shall be a north-south cycle lane connecting Avonhead Road to Memorial Ave, and leave it at that. And that is the requirement. That's then part of the ODP. Yep. Or you can be more precise if you want to be. It works, to my mind, better like that than it does showing a hard and fast fixed line on a map.
Either way, it's not difficult for us to add a cycleway in where there's an ODP. In my understanding, they all have cycleways in them, but if it's considered there aren't enough, well, we can discuss that when we come to each one.
Just on the reference you made in southwest Hornby, where there's a greenfield area, council is planning a cycleway that runs along Marsh's Road, so hence there wouldn't need to be a duplicate cycle route running through a landscaped area that runs directly adjacent to Marsh's Road, which is why we've taken that out of the rule, just on that point. But I'll come on to that later.
Shall we move on to Take Campus? Thank you.
Thanks.